In this class, we observed 3 different adaptations of Les Miserables, each from different contemporary time periods. There is an American 1935 adaptation, the French 1958, and the 2012 American musical adaptation. The key observation I made from watching and analyzing these 3 films is that people are provoked in different ways by different elements of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. Each film focused on 3 different themes of the novel and omitted different elements of the story. But each film used Hugo's story to make a statement about society, or to draw a certain reaction from the crowd. It speaks to the depth and complexity of Hugo's novel overall, because each generation relates to Les Miserables in a new and different way. It also speaks to the continuities within society, as many of the same themes in the original novel are still relevant today. The first film we watched was the American 1935 adaptation. This film was directed by Richard Bolesowski and starred Frederick Mark as Jean Valjean and Charles Laughton opposite him as Javert. It received nominations for the Academy Awards for Best Picture, Best Assistant Director, Best Cinematography, and Best Film Editing. This film personally was my least favorite of the 3. It drifted significantly from the original plot of Hugo's novel. Much of the story of Fantine and Eponine were missing. As well, Eponine was not painted as nearly as sympathetic as in other adaptations, and the lovable Gavroche was missing from this adaptation of the story. While these changes to the plot were not pleasing to me as a viewer, they do make sense to the overall goal this film sought, the feelings it hoped to derive in general society. 1935 America was experiencing a drive for the reform of prisons, and the director hoped to help this effort through the film. The story of Jean Valjean is heavily emphasized, including his time in prison, and when Javert dies at the end by suicide, he leaves open shackles on Valjean's doorstep, emphasizing that Valjean is free. The Students' Revolution is also changed here to be solely about the reform of prisons, much less than a full-fledged uprising. All of these changes were frustrating from my perspective, because I wanted the real story like in the book. But I think it was a quality adaptation to make a statement necessary in the time that it was created. The second film we watched was a 1958 French adaptation directed by Robert Hossein, starring Jean Gabin, Bernard Blier, and more. This film is widely known as the closest in similarity to the novel, and I would agree. Its close similarity to the plot of the novel itself is probably the reason that this is the longest of the 3 films. I personally like how it shows Marius and Cosette's love story more than the first movie. However, one critique that many have is in Jean Valjean's portrayal. In this film, he shows very little emotion. It is difficult to get a sense of the inner turmoils he struggles with throughout all of his challenges in his life. He never seems particularly happy or sad, and my understanding of the novel is that Jean Valjean is actually a very emotionally in touch man. He goes from living in anger, to letting go and living for God, to living for the love and protection of Cosette, and then to finally finding peace and acceptance and dying, knowing that he did everything he could. Not much of this is visible throughout the duration of the movie. One difficulty of a film in general is that, like in life, it is difficult to know the thoughts and feelings of all the characters, when in the novel they can be explained extensively. People don't actually talk to themselves in real life, so they can't in a movie. However, this film does include a narrator to make up for some of the disconnect the audience experiences with the characters. All in all, this film, in my opinion, is actually the most accurate representation of the novel. The third, and my favorite film that we watched, is a 2012 musical. This was directed by Tom Hooper and starred Hugh Jackman, Anne Hathaway, Russell Crowe, Amanda Seyfried, and more. It was wildly successful and won 3 Oscars. The musical itself was written in French and premiered in Paris in 1980. The London production has ran continuously since October 1985. The musical isn't as accurate of a portrayal of the basic plot as the French adaptation. However, the music allows for more elements of character development than the other 2 films that we viewed. Songs such as Who Am I and Stars allow the audience to see into the thoughts of the characters. Javert and Eponine have a lot more character development and garner more empathy than in either one of the other 2 films. Eponine's unrequited love for Marius is relatable to audience members. Even Javert's pain draws empathy from those who watch. Thénardier is not nearly as vile, but is portrayed more as a comedic relief. As well, the scenery and 21st century Hollywood production capabilities makes the poverty, dirt, and filth of the time much more realistic. The music causes more excitement, yet the production quality causes a realistic darkness to the story. In my personal opinion, this film portrays the themes and messages of Hugo better than the other 2, because the music allows the true depth of his messages to be heard. All in all, the novel is still the best version of the story. The book is generally better than the movie, and this is just another example. However, I think each film can be appreciated for their director's interpretation. The amount of times that Les Miserables has been produced as a movie, musical, or even TV show speaks to the timeless nature of Hugo's novel. Contemplation, forgiveness, and sacrifice will continue to be important themes for as long as humanity exists. I hope that society will continue to learn and grow due to the writings of Victor Hugo.